we are going to go ahead and continue with solving equations. You are going to notice that this first page is exactly what we had on the last set of notes. Okay, do I expect you to write it down again? If you haven't written it down once yet, yes, get it written down. We need to have this somewhere. Let's go ahead and write that essential question. And today is going to be, can I solve one step multiplication and division equations? So we are looking at one-step multiplication and division equations. And so we talked about in our last set of notes, kind of our intro to solving, we talked about how we have 5 steps. And I want to highlight these again. These 5 steps are so important. These 5 steps, I would have a huge poster in my room of them right now. And I'd refer to it every single time we were solving equations. Okay, so maybe put this on a sticky note or put this somewhere and look at it every single time you solve equations. Let's move on to our examples. We're going to go through those 5 steps each time. So let's first talk about multiplication. And we're used to seeing multiplication written with the letter X. I don't want to use a letter to represent multiplication anymore. So let's say that I have 2A. 2 next to the letter A means multiplication. Okay? Let's say that I have 2.A. That also means multiplication. So the dot means multiplication. And last, we could represent multiplication with a set of parentheses. So I just wanted to go through the different ways that we can see multiplication written. And we need to think about that because even though they all have a little different way of representing multiplication, they all mean multiplication. So for example, I'm Mrs. Bora, but I'm also a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a wife, I'm a friend, I'm a colleague. There's a lot of different roles I play, but I'm still Mrs. Bora. So just because it looks different, it still all means multiplication. So we have those 3 different ways. Let's jump into some examples. We've got to remember those inverse operations. And so example 1 here, we have 3x equals 12. We got to draw that line. Change all subtraction to addition. I don't have it. Apply the distributive property. I don't have it. Combine like terms. I don't have it. Now it is time for inverse operations. And we need to see that this is multiplication. And to get the letter X all by itself, the inverse of multiply is divide. And so we want to divide both sides. To get X by itself, we want to divide by 3. Why 3? Why can I cancel it out? Well, we know that anything divided by itself is the number 1. So 3 divided by 3 is 1x. And we are left with our value of 4. And we could actually check this answer to see if it is true by placing what we got for X into the original problem and do the math on your calculator. Does 3 times 4 equal 12? Yes, we got the correct answer. Let's go ahead and look at my second example here. Draw your line down the equal sign. Now here, we do not have subtraction to change to addition. We do not have the distributive property, step 3. No step 4. Step 4 is the combine like terms. We are going straight to step 5, moving and inverse operations. So the inverse of a -4 times A, we want to divide both sides. The inverse of multiply is divide. And we want to divide by what is being multiplied by that A, the entire thing. So we want to divide both sides by the -4. Why? Because a -4 divided by a -4, anything divided by itself is left with the 1. A. And a 64 divided by a negative 4, type it in on your calculator if you need to, is a negative 16. And again, if we want to check every single one of our answers, this is what we got for A. If we plug it in to where the letter A is, if we typed in on our calculator a negative 4 times a negative 16 and we get 64, then we did the problem correctly, and we do. Let's move on to some division problems. One step, these are one step because there's one operation. So let's talk real quick about different kinds of ways to represent division. And we know that, and you probably won't see this very often anymore, if I had R divided by 2 with the division symbol, that's one way to represent it. Or a second way of representing it is doing R divide by 2 with a fraction bar. So we need to realize that both of these methods mean division. So let's jump right into solving our problems. Draw a line down the equal sign. We do not have the distributive we do not have addition to subtraction to change to addition. We do not have the distributive property. We do not have combined like terms. We're going straight to the moving process on these. And we want to isolate or get our letter R all by itself. And so I see the fraction bar, so that means division. Well, what's the inverse of divide? It is multiply. We're going to use a dot to represent multiplication. And so what do we want to multiply by so that the R is by itself? What is by the R? It is the 100. And so remember, whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. And if we look here at this problem, we can take 100 and divide by 100. Just picture that fraction bar extended. And that gives you the letter R. And 100 times 8 gives you 800. And so our value for R is 800. Let's go ahead and look at another example here. We're going to draw the line down the equal sign. I see the fraction bar, so I need to be asking myself, what is the inverse operation of division? And the inverse is to multiply. Let's use our dot to represent multiplication. And what do you want to multiply both sides by? You want the letter B by itself. So we're going to multiply by the negative 7.5. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. Why am I multiplying by the negative 7.5? Because a negative 7.5 divided by a negative 7.5 leaves me with the whole number 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. So I have 1b equals, and when you take your decimals here and do a 2 8/10 times negative 7 5/10, you get a negative 21. Use your calculator. Please use your calculator. I have one last thing I want to go over, and that is what we call the reciprocal. Go ahead and take a look here at my reciprocal. What the reciprocal is when you have fractions. So let's say that I have 4/5. My reciprocal of 4/5 is flipped. It's 5/4. And the reason we like to talk about reciprocals is because if I multiply reciprocals together, I get 20 out of 20, or I get the whole number 1. So let's think, what do we think the reciprocal of 7/8 is? Good, you're gonna flip it. It would be 8/7. And the reason we like these is because if we multiply by the reciprocal, we get 56 over 56, which equals 1. So reciprocals always equal 1. So we're going to solve, when you multiply them, I should say. So we're going to solve an equation real quick using the reciprocal, and then we are done. And so if I have a fraction, 2/3 x, and let's say that equals the whole number 12. We're going to go through our steps. We're going to draw a line down the equal sign. We're going to change all subtraction to addition. We don't have it. We're going to apply the distributive property. We don't have it. We're going to combine like terms. We don't have it. So we are ready to isolate the variable or the letter and get the letter x all by itself. And when we look at this problem, we see the fraction by the x. So when we see that fraction, I hope what yells and screams at you is the reciprocal. So what is the reciprocal of 2 divided by 3? We're going to flip it. It's 3 divided by 2. And we're going to multiply the left-hand side by that. But remember, whatever you do to one side of the equation, we always have to do to the other side of the equation to keep it balanced. And why did we do that? Well, we know that reciprocals are going to give us 1. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 3 is 6. And we have 6 divided by 6x, which we know that cancels to just mean the number 1x. That's why we multiply by the reciprocal, is to isolate the variable x and get 1x all by itself. Let's do our math on the other side. How do we take 12 and make it a fraction? We can take any whole number and make it a fraction by placing it over 1. And 12 times 3 is 36. 1 times 2 is 2. And 36 divided by 2, we can simplify that fraction and get the whole number 18. So my value for this one is x equals 18. It was a lot, but they're all one-step equations. Multiply and divide. You got this. Have a good day.